Imagine walking into a room. You haven't said a single word. Nobody knows your job, your hobbies, or your personality. And yet, within seconds, someone has already decided whether they want to be around you. Sounds unfair? It is, because your brain makes these decisions incredibly fast, long before logic has a chance to catch up. Most people believe attraction begins with appearance, a better haircut, better clothes, a more attractive face. But psychology tells a very different story. In fact, two people can look almost identical and still leave completely different first impressions. One instantly makes you feel comfortable. The other makes you quietly want to leave. So what changed? Not their face, not their height, not their voice. The feeling they created. And here's something fascinating. Your brain isn't constantly asking, "Is this person attractive?" It's asking something much simpler. How do I feel when I'm around them? That single question quietly shapes almost every first impression you ever make. Think about the people you genuinely enjoy being with. Most of them aren't trying to impress anyone. They're not performing. They're not searching for the perfect words. Yet somehow, people naturally move toward them. Why? Because emotions spread, without anyone noticing. Scientists call this emotional contagion. If someone walks into a room carrying stress, people often become slightly more tense. If someone carries calm confidence, others begin to relax. It's almost like emotions are contagious. Because in many ways, they are. Your brain constantly copies tiny emotional signals from the people around you. Not because you choose to, because that's how humans learned to survive together. Imagine sitting beside someone who looks completely relaxed during turbulence on an airplane. Without realizing it, you start feeling calmer too. Now imagine the opposite. Someone is panicking, breathing fast, looking terrified, even if nothing dangerous is happening. Your own heart begins to beat faster. The situation didn't change. Someone else's emotional state changed yours, and that leads to the first habit. The most attractive people aren't always the loudest. They're often the calmest. Because calm doesn't just stay inside one person. It quietly spreads to everyone nearby. And people rarely remember exactly what you said. But they almost always remember how they felt around you. That's where real attraction begins. Not in your appearance, but in the invisible atmosphere you create. Have you ever met someone who wasn't especially funny or unusually smart, yet somehow you couldn't stop thinking about them? Now think about someone else. They said all the right things, tried to impress everyone. Maybe they were even more attractive, but somehow you forgot them the next day. Why? Because people rarely remember conversations. They remember emotions. Imagine meeting two strangers. The first person spends 10 minutes talking about themselves, their achievements, their opinions, their stories. The second person does something different. They ask one simple question. Then they actually listen. Not waiting for their turn to speak, not thinking about the next sentence, just listening. Who would you rather meet again? Most people think attraction comes from being interesting. But here's the paradox. The most interesting people often spend less time trying to sound interesting. They spend more time making other people feel interesting. And that's surprisingly rare. In today's world, everyone wants to be heard. Very few people make others feel heard. That's why genuine curiosity feels almost magnetic. When someone feels understood, their brain releases chemicals linked to trust and social connection. Not because you solved their problems, because for a few moments, they felt important. And people never forget how you made them feel about themselves. That's the second habit. Stop trying to be the most impressive person in the room. Become the person who makes everyone else feel comfortable being themselves, because the people others remember most aren't always the ones who spoke the most. They're usually the ones who made someone leave the conversation feeling just a little better than before. Now, here's something even stranger. The people who seem the most confident usually aren't trying to prove anything. Think about it. When someone constantly interrupts, finishes your sentences, or rushes to answer every question, what does it feel like? It feels like they're fighting for attention. Now imagine someone else. They hear your entire sentence. They pause, just for a second. Then they answer. That tiny pause changes everything. Why? Because your brain doesn't see it as hesitation. It often sees it as confidence. People who feel secure don't rush. They don't panic when silence appears. They don't feel the need to fill every empty moment with words. And surprisingly, silence can be more powerful than talking. Imagine a leader entering a meeting. They don't immediately start speaking. They look around, smile, take a breath, then begin. Nobody tells the room to pay attention, yet everyone already is, because calm behavior signals control. Your brain has learned this for thousands of years. The person who stayed calm during uncertainty was often the safest person to follow. That instinct never completely disappeared. It's still influencing first impressions today. And that leads to another habit. Become comfortable with small moments of silence. You don't need to answer instantly. You don't need to impress everyone immediately. Sometimes, the strongest presence in the room belongs to the person who never feels the need to compete for it.